We knew you guys would be a wonderful source for us. So came up with a list of things we wanted to do. Wonderful thing about you was you spoke our language. You knew all the programs that we used, so you knew exactly who we needed, and brought us Tammy. And we have been so excited about having her because her onboarding was flawless. She knew all the, when she transitioned responsibilities with our communications director, um, that person told us, she knows these programs better than I do.
Welcome back to the Dream Support Podcast or YouTube channel. My name is Micah. I am the host for this podcast and also the co-founder and co-owner of Dream Support. We are a remote executive assistant agency supplying EAs to busy leaders like Cynthia. Cynthia came to us about 8 months ago by referral of her nephew who had also utilized her services. And she works with a church in Florida, and they were in a very difficult transition, just trying to move from one pastor to another, and their two administrative people were moving off staff, and so they really needed somebody that was affordable, reliable, remote, unattached emotionally to what was going on, and we provided them with an EA, and she continues to work with them to this day. So I'd love for you to hear a little bit more about their experience.
We started having the conversation when we had lost our administrative assistant, who was part-time, which was a blessing because the church was on shaky ground at that point, and we really couldn't afford to have her on staff, even part-time. And so we started thinking about, well, first of all, her responsibilities were partly divvied out to volunteers and partly divvied out to, we had another part-time person who was our communications director. So she assumed some of the responsibilities. And then she decided that she wanted to leave. She gave us a long runway, thankfully.
Right.
During that time, our associate pastor and I sat down and said, what do we really have to have done? And I had heard about you from my wonderful nephew who had used Dream Support in the past. He's also in the ministry. So we knew you guys would be a wonderful source for us. So came up with a list of things we wanted to do. Wonderful thing about you was you spoke our language. You knew all the programs that we used, so you knew exactly who we needed, and brought us Tammy. And we have been so excited about having her because her onboarding was flawless. She knew all the, when she transitioned responsibilities with our communications director, that person told us, she knows these programs better than I do. So it was very quick. Yeah, it was very quick, very easy. And we tried to ease her into things because we know it's hard to be new. And we also recognize we're still working the kinks out on this. It's hard to be remote because you don't know the people. And so it's easy to mix up the people. One Ben versus another Ben. One could be 40 years old and one 12, but if you don't know them, you're not thinking that. So it's easy to confuse people. So we're still working on making sure we have good communication across all channels. But yeah, she has been so helpful for us in a period when we didn't feel comfortable and still don't feel comfortable, at least needing and or feeling like we can commit to someone as a paid employee and asking them to come on board with us and forego other opportunities when we might have to in 18 months say, we don't think we can afford you anymore. So yeah, it's been great for us in this transition period.
In that same transition, just like we were talking about a couple minutes ago, you guys had an interim pastor,
right?
And now he's
now
left.
The new guy.
Now you have a new guy coming, so you have some transition happening there, and that'll be a different kind of onboarding and a different kind of orienting to the community physically. So yeah, tons of transition happening there.
Right. And we also changed locations. So, and Tammy's been very helpful there. She spent hours trying to figure out how to update Google Maps. And we're still
Oh
working
yeah.
on Bing to get that updated, just all the places where the old address is and trying to get that all cleaned up. So yeah, she's jumped in on that too.
Yeah, it's kind of like when someone moves homes, you have to
Yeah.
forward mailing address and kind of slowly clean that up as things happen, and you realize, oh, that was connected to this. And what I started doing a long time ago is, because we moved 9 times in 7 years a decade ago. So what I started doing is keeping a list of all the things every time that I knew would need to be changed. It's not a bad idea for an organization or a company as well. Just
Right.
a little cheat sheet. So if locations have to be changed, you're like, okay, we've got to make sure we get through this big old list on changing and updating all the stuff. But yeah, as digital real estate continues to expand, and you've got your listing across different places and all that, it
Yeah.
becomes a lot to clean up, and it happens over time for sure.
Yeah, it really does. Yeah. And I know Tammy's keeping that list.
So tell me about, so what were some of the first things that you had her involved in?
So the first list included preparation of the bulletin. We're still kind of old school. We're still issuing paper bulletins. So she preps it. I'm the printer at this point. Um, she also prepares the slides that are projected on the screens. And one of the reasons we have the written bulletin is because we had some hiccups at the new location on our projections. So she does prepare the slides and all of that, doing the bulletin, preparing the slides. She interacts with the worship team, with the pastor. She also takes care of, we issue a weekly newsletter that goes out by email blast, and she
Okay.
also handles our social media accounts where we post those kinds of announcements, website updates, and recently we added loading sermons. We had a period where one of the issues we were having with our audiovisual team is actually recording the sermons, but that now seems to
Mm-hmm.
be fixed. And so she's loading those on our website. And she's picked up the Sunday morning volunteer schedule, minus children's ministry. They want to do their own, but everything else for set up, for communion, for reading the scriptures, for call to worship, all the different roles. She is maintaining that list now, and it was 3 or 4 different volunteers who were maintaining those lists before. So it's nice to have it consolidated, have someone have a total view to know if someone's already tied up with another ministry so they can't
Right.
volunteer this week, to reach out and seek volunteers where we've got holes in the schedule and that sort of thing.
Right. So that is pretty big when you have 4 different people managing different kinds of roles, and it sounds like you might have some crossover of the people who might do different things on different weeks,
Yes, yes,
and they didn't know if they were
right.
sort of
Well,
busy.
it was up to that individual to sign up, so that if they were
Sure.
already committed to another volunteer slot, then yeah, they just have to tell the person who kept the list, sorry, I can't help you this week.
Wow. Well, that's like quite a few things.
It
And,
is.
and what's amazing is it's accomplished in not a ton of time, as compared to what someone might do in a full-time job.
That's
Uh,
exactly right. That's exactly right.
Pretty
And that was
efficient.
one of the things we assumed early on, was it could be done much more efficiently by someone remote.
Mm, yeah. Well, there's something that happens when you're ingrained in the community. There's positives, absolutely. There's also a little bit of a second guessing of every decision, because you know every person and you know every story and you know what's going on. And in the back, at least for me, in the back of my brain, I start making excuses for people why they can't do something. I haven't even asked them. I just know that life is hard and everybody's got something going on. And so you start going, well, I probably shouldn't ask them because they got this or that going on. But the reality is, we got to help each other get out of those funks by involving people in a way that they can contribute, and then they feel like they're much more a part of the community and, investing, and that can bring someone out of those difficult problems as well, or at least feel lighter in their life. So have you noticed anything like that?
We have, and we've actually talked about that several times, that sometimes you can't just put out a blast and say, we need volunteers for this. You have to specifically ask people, and they love being asked, but they're not going to raise their hand unless you go to them directly. We have found that over and over.
Yeah. I say it like this. I say people love to be pursued.
Yeah, they really do. They really do.
Something about that. Even I have a group message right now sitting where someone's connecting me with someone else, and they're asking, they wanted to connect us, and I was like, hey, go ahead, connect us. And I'm waiting for that other person to enter the conversation before I respond, because I don't know what it's about, really. I'm waiting for them to engage me, and I'm not kind of just jumping at it. So I get it. Like, you want to be communicated with, you want to be known, you want to be invited into doing something important. And I think the higher level leader, the less willing they are just to jump out at a call to action, and way more willing to jump in when you say, I see this in you. Will you help us with this? That's a really big distinction, I think.
Yeah.
Maybe you mentioned this a little bit. Um, you said that, it can be hard sometimes because she doesn't know the names, and the bin versus the bin. Are there any other sort of things you've had to overcome just because of the remote factor?
I don't think so. Tammy, she's wonderful. Even though we have her 10 hours a week, I can reach out to her with a text or an email, and I typically hear from her within 2 or 3 hours.
Mm-hmm.
So she told us from the very beginning that she touches each of her clients every single day, and we have definitely experienced that. So, in spite of our time difference, too, just a communication issue, because a lot of times you take things for granted. You're there, you see it happen, and you forget that, oh, I need to tell you these four things that we see because we're right here. So yeah, we're trying to figure out how to be better at that.
Yeah, totally get that. Just that communication is so key, and having clarity of communication. I was on a call with two assistants today that served me, and I had crisscrossed some assignments between them. And then they were like, hey, I thought I was doing this, and the other one, I thought I was doing this. Like, no, you guys are right. I just messed it up.
Yeah.
Totally right. I just got it backwards and all messed up in my brain, and so it impacted you. I'm sorry. I'll try to fix that. So yeah, totally get that. And she's in Oklahoma, and you
Right.
guys are in Florida.
Right.
Have you found a difficulty sort of, because they're two different regions, two different fields, anything like that?
Not at all. Yeah. And then another thing we love about Tammy is that she adds her own signature to things. So she has improved our newsletter so much, and she adds little touches that are just endearing and fun. And like for our Easter egg hunt, she had a picture that had the Easter eggs, and she put the photo of the pastor and his wife inside the Easter eggs. And I just laughed out loud when I got that. It was so cute that she did that. And she always adds little touches like that. So it it makes, and I don't know that we've looked at our read through rates lately, but I think they're probably much better now, just because it's much more interesting to see what she's sent out.
They call those, and it's funny that it's on Easter, because they call those Easter eggs. what are the little touches that you look for that are like little surprises? And so that's fun. You had Tammy Easter eggs on Easter in your newsletter. That's fantastic. I love it.
Right.
What is maybe one of the surprising things that you found working with Tammy, something you didn't anticipate, but has worked out really well?
I mean, we knew she would be able to pick up a lot of diverse things and contribute. So I don't know that we've had any surprises, really. We just continue to be very pleased with what she's able to jump in and help with. One of the things I left out that she did initially was because we were about to start the pastor search. And
Mm.
I had to put together a brochure for that. And I certainly didn't want to learn publishing software. And I didn't want to have to rely on anyone on the search committee to do it because they all have jobs and most of them have children. So I didn't want to give them that kind of a big task. And our interim pastor was going on vacation the first couple of weeks. So it was ideal for me to be able to grab all of her time and attention to work on that specific project. And recently, so when we did the brunch to honor our interim pastor and his wife as they're leaving, she put together a slideshow for us. And I think she did one when I was out of town too. I think she did another one at that time of just photos that we were able to, put them on, let people watch while they were having brunch. So just all the different areas that she's able to jump into that before we had it split between two people who were working many more hours than she has to right now. And granted, they had time to think strategically, and right now we don't need someone to do that. But that's the beauty of being able to use someone remote is you can use them for what you need, and you don't have to staff up for any more than that.
Right. Right. Well, that's amazing. I love that. I love hearing that. And I love hearing that for Tammy. I love to share that with her. Hey, they're so excited about all that you've brought to the table and all the things you continue to do and for the capacity you've brought to them. That's fantastic. I love it. Your nephew, Kevin, sent our contact to you or vice versa. I can't remember. But he connected us and just sort of made an introduction because he knew you guys needed some help and he had experienced some help. So if there was somebody that was toying with the idea of adding a Tammy like person to their team, what would be sort of your words of wisdom or advice to them?
Oh, I would tell them absolutely that that's the way to go. I have actually already provided your contact information we use an outside accountant who does our QuickBooks. Um, so and she has, I don't know, half a dozen churches as clients. So I've definitely given her your name, and I don't know if she's had the opportunity to pass it along, but I always tell her we continue to be very, very happy with this arrangement. So, and I would do the same with someone else that I identified who needed some assistance, felt comfortable with using a remote person. Yeah, I mean, I had to sell it to our elders. They were not excited about the idea initially. Yeah.
I'm sure. I mean, that's sort of how it is with change and with different and new and all that sort of stuff. That's kind of how it is in nonprofits of all kinds, including churches, right? Because you have people who are responsible and feel responsible for the mission of the organization, want to make sure that it stays on track and that they're stewarding things well. So yeah, totally get that.
Yeah.
Pretty normal.
But they're happy now, so.
Awesome. That's great. I'm glad to hear it. Well, I really appreciate you just taking the time to speak with me just for a little bit here so that I could check in and see how things are going and learn. Really, if there's anything we could do to help, please don't hesitate to reach out. Well, thanks for listening. And if you found that helpful, insightful, or anything like that, please consider subscribing wherever you're consuming this. And look out for future podcast episodes releasing every Wednesday. They're not always interviews. A lot of times they're just tips and tricks and ways to level up either your leadership or your investment in your own remote executive assistant. So be on the lookout for those. God bless.